Hey y'all, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming to you with my Faustathon TBR. And Faustathon is a readathon that is running for a couple of weeks in August, and I am one of the co-hosts of it. So it runs from August 14th to August 27th, and I will be hosting a live show here on my channel on August the 27th to kind of wrap up the readathon. The official announcement video is up on Christy Lewis's channel. I will link to that down below. Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, Rainey from Rainy Day Reads, and Pay from Attention are also co-hosting this event. And there are going to be some reading sprints on Rainey's channel on August 14th. But from the name of the readathon, I'm sure you can guess that basically our focus for this readathon is Faust, which is a German story about making a deal with the devil. And there have been many, many iterations of this myth and story over the years. Some of them are very, very famous and I'm sure are incredibly familiar to you, but some of them are a little bit more obscure in how they kind of retell this story and retell this myth. So in many ways, this readathon is kind of a free-for-all. If you're reading a retelling of Faust, you are participating in it. We do have a bingo board, which is linked in the description of the official announcement video, so I'll have that linked down below as well. But I wanted to tell you my TBR. 2 weeks is a relatively short amount of time, and so I didn't really want to overload my TBR, but I have just a few things that I would really like to get to, and one of those is our group reads. So we do have a group read, and it is possibly the most famous telling of the Faust story. That is Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, and this is one of my favorites of all time. This is certainly one of my favorite plays that I've ever read. It's one that I've read many times. It was assigned so many times when I was in university, and it was always just a genuine pleasure to read, and it's one that I thoroughly enjoyed reading with a group and discussing with others, and so I think it's going to be a really good choice for the group read. Since I have read this one so many times, I am not sure if I will truly give it a full reread this time around or if I'll just skim over things and go back over my old notes, but this is one that I have read I think at least 3 times, and I really enjoy it, and so I'm excited to see what everyone has to say about it. The live show for this group read and just for the readathon in general will be on my channel on August 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and I hope that you will join us in discussing this. This is definitely the most famous version of Faustus, and I think there's a good reason for that. I really love Christopher Marlowe though, and this is just in general one of my favorite classics that I've ever read. My focus though for the readathon is going to be German tellings of this story. Faustus is originally a German story, and so I really wanted to stick in that wheelhouse. And so 2 of the more famous versions are the ones that I really want to read this time around. And so one of those is Goethe's Faust, and I read last year The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe, and I had mixed emotions about that. Now that was a novel, and it was a very short novel, and it's just not one that I really felt a genuine connection with. So I'm curious about this. I'm kind of going into this one apprehensively. This is part 1 of Faust, which I believe was published many, many years prior to part 2. He came back to the second part of this much later in life. And so I don't actually have part 2 on my shelf. And so I'm going to read this and see how this goes before I decide whether or not to pick up the second part. And hopefully this introduction is really comprehensive and tells me why he chose to separate things out. I'm not sure if part 1 tells a complete story, if it leaves off on a cliffhanger. I'm really interested to see the format of this. So this is another play. It feels relatively long to be a play. It's around 150 pages, and that kind of excites me, and I think I'll probably really enjoy it. But I'm going into this kind of apprehensive just because my history with Goethe as an author hasn't been the best so far. So we will see how this one goes. The other big German book on my TBR is one I've already started reading. You can see it is Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann. I started reading this the other day on my Kindle, And I highlighted basically everything and I said, I'm gonna have to get a physical copy of this book so that I can annotate it. And that's exactly what I've started doing. On page 25, is it a 5-star read? Is it the best book I've read this year? It's kind of feeling like it. Only on page 25. So in some ways, I'm a little bit concerned about this because this has the potential to really lose me. This is a very, very long book. That's why I've gone on and started it. And there is so much page time left that I think it could really lose me. But so far, I am just automatically in love with the writing. And I have a confession to make. I think I really am a philosophical reader. And I've said for years on this channel, and I know many of y'all know this, I have always said I don't like philosophy. I don't like philosophical books. That is not true. I think I must not like straight philosophy, like reading a genuine philosophical text. I like books or novels that are playing with philosophy. And that's what this one is doing. And it is so good so far. It is so good so far. I hope I'm not making a mistake by starting with this one in my journey with Thomas Mann. I feel like this is one of the last books that he wrote, which makes me feel like maybe I should have saved it for towards the end of my reading of him. But so far, I am really loving this. This sets the kind of Faust storyline in a more modern day setting. And so this was written, I think, published in 1947, and the story takes place in the early 20th century, and it is about a musician who makes the deal with the devil, which I think is very interesting, and I'm really intrigued by this so far. I think this feels very new and fresh to me in terms of a retelling of Faust. And so I'm pumped about this. I mean, I'm really loving this so far and I hope that it keeps it up. Last but not least, something that is tentatively on my TBR, but I just don't know if I'll get to it, is Manfred by Lord Byron. And this is a longer form poem. I don't know if it's necessarily truly an epic poem, but it is a longer poem of Byron's that was written around 1816. And it is apparently a retelling of the Faust story. Now, how much it cleaves to the original story, I don't know. I don't know if it's more of a retelling along the lines of, say, Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, but I know Lord Byron wrote it, and it was written at a time during which I think Byron's writing was at its height, as kind of the early to mid 18 teens. And so I feel sure that I will really love this. It's just going to depend on whether or not it really is a long form poem. And so if it's really long, if it's like Childe Harold length, I'm probably not going to get to it in that 2-week period. But if it's a little bit shorter, I definitely think I can squeeze this one in. So that's one that I'm really excited about. That right now is my tentative TBR for Faustathon. I would love to know down below if you're going to participate with us. I hope that you do. And I would love to know what your TBR is. But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.